Hi and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be bringing you guys the latest Manchester United's footballing structure. So basically, I'm going to try and cover as much as I possibly can with regards to United's newest footballing structure that have been hired in order to try and help the club to succeed and actually become competent both on and off the pitch. So yeah, I mean, this is a video that I've been thinking of doing for quite some time now. But of course, I had to wait and see how Man United would go about assembling this team of, I don't know, other people are calling it the Avengers. Of football. I mean, most people will probably laugh and think, why are Man United fans making so much noise about getting a footballing structure? I mean, that's what most teams do nowadays. Well, I'll tell you why. Man United have not had a footballing structure since Sir Alex Ferguson left the club. I mean, he was basically the structure himself, but we've all seen in modern day football, you need to have an actual footballing structure, that will actually help the team move forward and do well both on and off the pitch. So, yeah, without wasting too much time, let's get started. So, in at number one, we've got Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Earlier on this year, it was made public that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who happens to be the majority owner of Ineos Group, had basically bought a 25% minority stake into Manchester United. That essentially means that he's now part of the board for Manchester United. And whilst Sir Jim came to Manchester United, he quickly brought along with him one of his closest allies in Sir David Brailsford. Now, some of you may ask, who is Sir David Brailsford? Now, I'm going to be trying to be brief when it comes to him, but basically, he is the head of sport of Ineos Sporting Group. Some of the things that he's mostly known for is his work with British Cycling. He's also worked with Team Sky, and most recently, he's been working with Ineos Grenadiers. But then when it comes to Manchester United, he's going to be taking over the key role of footballing operations at Manchester United. And together with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, they've basically played a big part in basically assembling Manchester United's new footballing structure. But basically they're basically the top guys, if I can put it that way, in terms of the food chain, in terms of the new people that have been brought into Manchester United's footballing structure. But yeah, like I said, Sir Jim's at the top, and he's come along with Sir David Brailsford, and underneath them, we've got a very, 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 very important hire that Manchester United have made, and that is none other than Omar Berrada. Now, this is a guy that Manchester United basically went and took from Manchester City. He was basically Manchester City's COO, Chief Operating Officer, but United have taken him and brought him to Man United in a higher position, and we've given him the role of CEO. So this guy is quite experienced when it comes to the commercial and financial side of things. So not only is he going to focus on the financial and commercial side of things, but he's also going to be the guy who basically has the final say in terms of how much we're spending on for players. Like, for example, if Man United are saying we're looking for Jared Brentwaite, and we're saying we value Jared Brentwaite at £50 million. If, I don't know, our recruitment team decides to negotiate a deal with Everton and maybe agree on a £60 million deal, before that transfer can be sanctioned, it has to go through Omar Berrada, who happens to be the CEO of the club. So he's the guy who's going to be able to say yes or no to whether we bring on a certain player or whether we sell a certain player. He's going to determine things like the values of players. And yeah, he actually has experience when it comes to this, because whilst he was still at City, when he was operating as the COO, he used to work very closely with City's head of recruitment. So he's quite experienced when it comes to these negotiations and things like that. Although he won't be the guy who's directly doing the negotiations, he will be the guy to decide whether a fee for a player is too high or too low and things like that. But yeah, like I said, Omar Berrada is the new Manchester United CEO, and he will be mostly focused on the financial side of things when it comes to Manchester United. But yeah, moving it along, we've then got Dan Ashworth. Now, Dan Ashworth will be joining Manchester United in the capacity of sporting director. For those who don't know, we quite struggled. We had a big back and forth with with Newcastle United with regards to us getting Dan Ashworth. We saw us being linked with the guy for over 4 months now. I think sometime in February, the reports were coming out that United had basically highlighted Dan Ashworth as the person who they felt would be perfect for their role of sporting director. However, Newcastle were basically annoyed at the fact that Manchester United were basically poaching their guy who they had recently gotten from Brighton themselves. So Newcastle said that Man United when had to pay something like £20 million. So Jim Ratcliffe said, no, we're not going to pay that. That's too much. We had a back and forth when he resigned from Newcastle, Ashworth, and he was put on gardening leave. But due to the fact that Newcastle had some issues with the PSR and they needed to raise some funds, on the deadline day of I think it was the 30th of June, which was the deadline for the PSR activities, Newcastle and Man United basically brokered a deal and basically reached a compromise. And apparently the fee is something below £10 million, which we actually ended up paying to Newcastle. Newcastle originally wanted £20 million, but it's being reported Man United paid less than £10 million to get their man in Dan Ashworth. And that's very good news. So Dan Ashworth will basically be overseeing footballing activities at Manchester United, including the success of the youth academy, the women's football team, as well as overseeing some of the recruitment of the first team men's football team at Manchester United. So he's also going to be responsible for implementing the club's footballing structure. His job will also be to ensure that Manchester United, for example, have got the right people who are in charge of scouting, the right people in terms of recruitment, we've got the right coaches. And, his job is to basically make sure that, for example, if you're saying we've got a goalkeeping coach, is the goalkeeping coach aligned with the style of play that Manchester United has? That's going to be part of his job. He needs to ensure that from our goalkeeping coach, the defensive coach, the attack coach, the set piece coaches, he needs to make sure that we've got the right people in the right jobs and will actually help the team perform well come the weekend and we've got games, So he's got quite a lot on his plate, he's got quite a lot on his plate, but that his responsibilities don't end there, funny enough. He will also need to ensure that the women's team gets enough support, For years and years at Manchester United, the women's team has basically been neglected. So part of Ashworth's remit will be to ensure that the women's team rather, gets enough support. We're getting the right people making sure that they're getting backed in the transfer market, the youth academy, all of those things. Because like I said, for a long, long time, Manchester United's women's team has been neglected. So now he needs to make sure that he restores order in that team by getting the right people in place to ensure that everything runs smoothly. Just as much as we're paying so much attention to the men's team, we also need to do the same thing for the women's team. And last but not least, his job is also going to be to ensure that there's more than adequate and enough support for the youth academy. Again, like I said, the youth academy hasn't always been the greatest. It's also been a bit abandoned in Manchester United. Of course, we keep producing players like Garnacho, Kobe Mainoo. In the past, we produced the likes of Rashford, Pogba, Jesse Lingard, all of those guys. So he needs to ensure that Manchester United's supply line from the youth academy to the first team continues. We'll continue to produce good players, make sure that there's good training facilities. The youth academy, the coaches are the right type of coaches. They're following the Man United's new DNA, So that's part of Ashworth's job, So basically, like I said, whilst you've got Omar Berrada, the CEO, focusing on the financial side of things at Manchester United, you've got Dan Ashworth, who happens to be the sporting director and will be focusing on the footballing side of things, But yeah, moving it on, we've then got Jason Wilcox, who will be Manchester United's new technical director. For those who don't know, Wilcox came from Southampton. He was the director of football over there. But obviously, when Man United came knocking, he said, you know what, I'm going to leave Southampton. I'm going to go and join Manchester United. So with him, at least, the transition from Southampton to United was quite smooth. There weren't too many issues. But yeah, he's here. And what he's going to be charged with doing or dealing with is basically, he's basically the guy who's going to be in charge of the youth academy. Like, he's the guy who's going to be running it fully. his job is to also to ensure that the style of play that Manchester United has is being transferred right from the youth academy to the first team. So also to make sure that this style of play that's being played in the first team from the men's side is also being played on the women's side. And not only should it be there, basically the style of play should be the same across the board. The youth academy, the women's team, the men's first team, all these three sides should be playing the same type of football. So that will basically mean that his job is to also to ensure that he lets the scouts know that whilst the scout players, they need to scout players who will fit the system of Manchester United and not vice versa. Because in the past, Manchester United have been guilty of signing players who don't necessarily fit the way in which the team has to play. So now Manchester United are trying to come up with an actual style of play. So they're saying that the way the first team plays, the men's first team plays, it should be the exact same way which the females first team plays and the youth academy plays. So basically, these young academy players that we sign, they should grow up playing a certain type of football so that they get used to the way in which a certain type of style of play that Manchester United want to play, so that by the time that they get to the first team, for the men's first team or the women's first team, they're now used to the way of that style of play. So it makes it easier for them to adapt into the men's first team football or women's first team football, and just makes everything smoother for them. It's a smoother transition for the young players, like I said. And like I said, that will also impact the way in which recruitment is done. We will try and assign players, not only just for the youth academy, but also for the first team players, teams as well, whether it's the men's or the women's. We will try and sign players who fit the system. Not just that thing of saying, we've already got Anthony Martial playing very well at left wing, but let's still go sign another left winger and Alexis Sanchez to disrupt the whole thing. No, we sign a player who fits the system. You get what I'm saying? Whether it's a big name or a small name, sign a player who fits the system, will actually play well and help the team move forward. But anyways, Jason Wilcox will also have to basically evaluate the players in the youth academies, see which players fit the model that United are trying to inherit, in terms of the style of play and things like that. Which players fit that model? Which players don't fit the model? Obviously, the players that don't fit the model will be sold or, transferred to other clubs, and we'll try and bring in players who actually fit that model and the style of play. He will actually see, even when it comes to the first team side of things, he needs to identify this player. He does fit the style of play in our model that we're looking to basically adopt moving forward. However, Wilcox will have to see where exactly that player is lacking, because a player might fit the way a team plays, but they could be lacking in certain aspects of their game. So his job will be to identify those areas in which they're lacking and try and come up with solutions to help them improve so that they can fit the team. And lastly, Jason Wilcox's duties will be to evaluate the coaching staff that we've got, both at senior level and at youth level. And first team, whether it's men's first team or women's first team, it doesn't matter. He will have to assess those coaches and make sure that they're in line and they fit with the plans that we have. If we're saying we want to be a team that presses high up the pitch, you have to ensure that the coaches that you've got are basically aligned to that. You can't have a plan to say we want to press high up the pitch, but then the coaches we've got are coaches who base their philosophies on defensive type of football. It doesn't work because it contradicts each other, So his job is also to identify that the type of coaches that we have currently, are they the type of coaches that are aligned with the team and aligned with the vision of the team and how we want to perform, But basically, those are just some of the duties that Jason Wilcox will have. And obviously, he will be reporting to Dan Ashworth, who happens to be the sporting director, as I mentioned earlier on. But moving on to the next appointment that we've got in this new structure from Ineos, we've got Christopher Vivell. The German international. He was a former Chelsea technical director. He was also at RB Leipzig, and he was apparently rumored to have played a big part in identifying the likes of Erling Haaland, what's his name, Timo Werner, Christopher Nkunku, Haidara, Benjamin Šeško, lots of these players. And so it sounds quite impressive, as at Man United he's going to be hired on the capacity of interim director of recruitment or director of global talent. So like I said, he's going to be hired on an interim basis and it's going to be a short-term contract, and it's going to basically help with United's recruitment throughout the summer. And I don't know, maybe the club will decide to see, maybe it's a bit of a test run to see if he's good enough, and if maybe they're happy with his work this summer, and maybe in the winter window they might give him the job full time, so we never know. But for now, he's been hired on an interim basis. And some of his responsibilities include he basically has to evaluate some of our recruitment and identification of talent, and basically report back to Dan Ashworth as to the areas in which he sees, this is where we're lacking, maybe this is where we can improve, things like that. His job is to identify, okay, these guys who are scouting these players, are they doing it the right way? Are they doing it the wrong way? Are they taking shortcuts? Are they being too fast in making a decision, or too fast to write a player off, or too fast to say a player is good enough? That's his job. Evaluate the recruitment strategies and, like I said, the talent identification. And basically what Ineos are trying to do now is to try and get the next Mbappe, the next Erling Haaland, the next Vinicius Jr. We don't want to have to sign them whilst they're now an established brand. We're trying to go to a place whereby we sign these players before they become world-class superstars. So we're trying to get them earlier, before they make a name for themselves. So that's another part of his job, which is going to be tasked with ensuring that happens, So basically, him working alongside Jason Wilcox, the both of them are going to have to come up with a strategy after we've actually signed these players who are deemed to be the next Mbappe or the next Messi or Ronaldo or whatever it is. Once we've gotten these young players, his job along with Jason Wilcox is to make sure that the coaches along the youth setup are making sure that they get the best out of these players to help them become good players. Even if maybe we sign a young player but it goes straight into the first team, his job will be to ensure that the coaching staff are trying by all means to get the best out of these young players. So basically we're trying to avoid a situation like we had with Amad Diallo, or where we signed him and just kept on sending him out on loan, or we just have him but then the manager's not interested in him, he just keeps on benching him. Or Facundo Pelistri, another one who literally is a starter for Uruguay, but for Man United was always benched by Ten Hag. So we're trying to avoid that moving forward. We're trying to get players who both the coaching staff and the manager wants, and they will be able to get the best out of, So that's part of his remit. What else am I forgetting? Yeah, so another thing which is a good quality of this guy, Christopher Vivell, he's used to the multi-club model. Like I said, he was in the RB Leipzig group, so obviously he's working like between, I think it's RB Salzburg and RB Leipzig. They're all in the Leipzig in the RB group, so he's quite experienced in that. So since Manchester United are looking to move towards that, we're trying to, for example, we already own Ineos, so Ineos already own Nice, and apparently we're looking to buy more sister clubs, so that will make it easier. So this is where he comes into play, because he can then advise us. For example, if we're signing a player from Brazil whose permit is not ready for him to come straight to England, we can then maybe sign a player from Palmeiras in Brazil and loan him to a club, our sister club, maybe in Spain or in Italy or France. He's very experienced in that, so he could tell us on the ways in which we can move or maneuver without getting into trouble with UEFA or the Premier League, as he's basically an expert when it comes to that. He's basically sort of like a recruitment specialist, if you will, So those are some of the things that he's going to bring into the table, Obviously, right now this season, apparently United can't sign Jean-Claude Todibo because UEFA has now decided to come with the rule to say, since we're playing in the same competition as, I think it's the Europa with Nice, so we basically can't sign a player from our sister club because we're in the same European competition, which is very annoying. So again, a person like Christopher Vivell would help maneuver and find loopholes around such things and try and advise us on how to go about it. Maybe we sign Todibo, maybe Nice loan Todibo, or sell Todibo to, I don't know, AC Milan, and then Manchester United loan him from AC Milan, and then maybe like we say we're gonna loan him with an obligation to buy, something around that. But basically, someone like Christopher Vivell is here to advise with such things, and yeah, it's going to be quite useful to the team. But anyways, let's keep it moving. The video's been long enough. Moving along, we've got Erik Ten Hag, who is not necessarily a new hire, but Ineos have basically already triggered the extra year in his contract. He had 1 year left in his contract. He had with an option for a second year. and Ineos have basically triggered the second year on his contract. So basically, Ten Hag's now got 2 years left on his contract. So yeah, I'm gonna put him under the Ineos hires due to the fact that they've triggered an extra year on his contract. And something important to note about Ten Hag, he gets to keep the exact same conditions he signed the contract on originally. So it's the exact same conditions. He keeps his veto. He still has the same which players would sign, which players would sell. I'm not too happy about that, but it is what it is, man. We keep on moving. And speaking of Ten Hag, it's been reported that Benny McCarthy has been left the club. Also, Mitchell van der Gaag is apparently also going to leave the club. So Manchester United have now brought in 2 new assistant coaches. The first one being the club legend himself, Ruud van Nistelrooy, legend of the club, top striker back in his day. Obviously, Van Nistelrooy apparently had a chance to go get a first team coach in the championship, but he turned it down to come join Man United, you know. And I know some people will probably be wondering, why is Van Nistelrooy part of coaching staff? What experience does he have? Well, if you must know, he actually has managed, and in the Eredivisie, he managed PSV Eindhoven, and he managed to win I think it's the KNB, what is it called? KNVB Becker Trophy. Also, and he also won the Johan Cruyff Shield. So apparently those 2 trophies are basically like the equivalent of the FA Cup when it comes to English football, and the Carabao Cup. So it's not quite bad. It's not bad. Also, in that season that he was managing PSV, he did finish second in the league. So again, he had a very good season, but apparently he resigned due to the fact that he felt that after having a very good season with PSV, the management wasn't backing him financially in the market. So he felt he was going to resign, which is exactly what he did. So Van Nistelrooy is joining the club, so I'm very happy about that. Legend of the club. Hopefully he does very well. And to be honest, I've got a bit of a feeling that if Ten Hag doesn't perform, Van Nistelrooy might just be given the job as an interim for the rest of the season. So, but let's wait and see what happens. But when it comes to the second coach that Ten Hag has been given, or the second assistant coach that he's been given, we've got Rene Haak. Rene Haak was basically managed Go Ahead Eagles, but he's now left his job as a first team coach to come and be a second or assistant coach at Manchester United under Erik ten Hag. And apparently the 2 of them have got a relationship, as they were both working together when Ten Hag was managing the youth team at FC20. So he worked he's got a close relationship with Erik ten Hag. But apparently Rene Haak is someone who's quite fiery and very brutal when it comes to the players. He's very honest and is not the arm around the shoulder type of manager. So maybe that'll help some of the players who maybe are sulking at Man United. You know, maybe you can light the fire under their bums and maybe get them going again, you know. So, but yeah, that's basically the structure, the new Manchester United structure, or the Avengers, as Manchester United fans are calling them. But yeah, man, we've got a very good structure now. Like I said, we've got right at the top, we've got Sir Jim Ratcliffe alongside Sir David Brailsford. Underneath them, you've got the CEO, Omar Barada. Underneath him, you've then got, what's his name? Dan Ashworth, who's going to be the sporting director. And then underneath him, you've got Jason Wilcox, who happens to be the technical director. And then you've got Christopher Vivell, who's going to be the interim director of global talent or recruitment, something like that. And then of course we've got Ten Hag with his new coach, assistant coaches, Van Nistelrooy and Rene Haak. But yeah, man, that was me. I've been thinking of doing the video, so I finally got to do it today. You know, I thought, let me do my research, get enough information, then do the video, so I can give you guys enough information. I didn't want to rush it and just do a video with incomplete structure. But now it's looking like Manchester United finally have got a complete structure, a new structure, like a new footballing structure, which hopefully will help us do well in the transfer market and on the pitch, you know, help us get the right players and get rid of the players we don't need in the club, you know. But for me, I'm personally very excited about this structure. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I think they will do well. I really do. I think they will perform. But yeah, anyways, let me know what you thought. Are you happy about the new structure? Is there someone else you feel we should have gotten instead of the people we've already assembled? Are you happy with them? Are you happy with the Avengers? Are you not? Let me know what you thought in the comments section. And if you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys soon. Peace.